Picture this. An entire nation that's been wandering through a literal desert for decades is finally standing on the cusp of fulfilling a centuries-old promise. But before they take even a single step forward, their leader has one last desperate message for them. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to unpack a completely pivotal moment in history, Moses' final farewell in the Book of Deuteronomy.
To really get the immense stakes here, we have to look back at this intense 40-year historical journey. We start with the miraculous exodus from Egypt, which is followed pretty quickly by the giving of the law at Mount Sinai. But then, total disaster strikes. Because of their fear and their outright rebellion at a place called Kadesh Barnea, an entire generation actually disqualified themselves from entering the Promised Land. That monumental failure resulted in a grueling 40-year wilderness wandering. I mean, imagine the absolute worst, most exhausting family road trip, but it lasts 4 decades? And that brings us right to the present day. The Israelites are camped out on the plains of Moab, staring straight across the river at their destiny.
Now, because of that past rebellion, the older generation has passed away. Moses is now standing before their children, a brand new, untested generation. And Moses knows he's not going to cross over with them. So he is urgently, passionately pleading with this group. You see, he knows human nature. He knows that the true battle isn't actually going to be against the giant armies waiting in Canaan. It's going to be an internal war against the temptations of their own hearts. He's giving them a final, desperate warning not to repeat their parents' tragic mistakes once they finally reach a place of prosperity and comfort. What's really fascinating here is the name of the book itself. Deuteronomy comes from the Greek word Deuteronomonium, which literally translates to second law or a repetition of the law. This beautifully sets up the idea of a massive contract renewal. Remember, this new generation wasn't present, or they were just little kids, at Mount Sinai when the original covenant was made between God and Israel. So Moses is essentially restating the terms of the relationship, updating it, and preparing this new generation to really own this covenant for themselves. So we're looking at roughly the year 1406 BC when Moses delivers these passionate speeches. And he doesn't just start throwing rules at them right out of the gate. He actually begins by summarizing their history. He reminds the people of a really staggering reality: God's constant, unyielding grace. Even when their parents were openly rebellious, God still provided, bringing them manna from heaven to eat and water from rocks to drink. Moses is purposefully recounting this history to build their trust. He wants them to realize that because God was incredibly faithful in their turbulent past, they can absolutely trust him with their uncertain future. Section 1. The Shema. Listen and love. This brings us to a declaration that would become the absolute beating heart of Jewish daily life. This famous passage from Deuteronomy chapter 6 is just breathtaking in its scope. Moses is telling the people that their success in the land isn't going to come from having the best military strength or some clever political strategy. It demands wholehearted devotion to their Creator. And it's a stark contrast to the culture they're about to step into. The Canaanites worshipped a multitude of idol gods, representing different aspects of nature, like the sun or the weather or war. This charge demands total, exclusive loyalty to one God. Unpacking the original Hebrew here brilliantly illustrates the depth of what Moses is asking. The word Shema means to listen, but in Hebrew it means so much more than just letting sound waves hit your ears while you casually scroll on your phone. It intrinsically demands active obedience. If you truly listen, you respond. Likewise, the word love here isn't just a fleeting emotion or a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's a holistic decision that involves your will, your mind, and your emotions. It's an all-encompassing commitment of your entire being. Okay, from that core foundation of devotion, we move into the massive collection of societal laws, right at the center of the book, covering chapters 12 through 26. These were the specific terms of the Sinai covenant, and the goal of these laws wasn't just to arbitrarily burden the people, it was to make Israel a unique kingdom of priests. By living out these specific instructions, Israel was supposed to be a shining beacon to the rest of the world, vividly displaying the wisdom, justice, and character of God to all the surrounding nations. To pull that off, these laws touched literally every aspect of their society. They were to centralize their worship to one temple. They were instructed to give 1/10 of their annual income to support that temple. But remarkably, an extra 1/10 every 3 years was specifically gathered up and given directly to the poor. There were strict, uncompromising social justice laws demanding the protection of the absolute most vulnerable: widows, orphans, and immigrants. So the crucial takeaway here is that in Israel, true, holy worship of God was inextricably bound to creating a society that fiercely cared for its marginalized people. When you compare Israel's system with their ancient neighbors, the contrast is just staggering. In surrounding cultures, like over in Assyria or Babylon, kings were basically viewed as divine beings. They were a law unto themselves, wielding absolute, unchecked power. But in Israel's system, the kings, the priests, and the elders were completely subordinate to the covenant laws, and God would actively send prophets to hold those leaders accountable. God was pushing Israel to a revolutionary, radically higher level of justice that simply did not exist anywhere else in the ancient world.
With the terms of the covenant officially laid out, we reach chapters 27 through 30, where Moses pushes the dramatic tension to its absolute peak. He's wrapping up this massive speech by laying out a conditional, incredibly high-stakes ultimatum for the nation's future. The laws have been stated. Now, a definitive choice has to be made.
Moses then strips the people to participate in a massive public ceremony once they actually enter the land. Imagine this. Half the tribes are to stand on Mount Gerizim to pronounce the blessings of obedience. We're talking sweeping prosperity, swift victory over enemies, and abundant harvests. Meanwhile, the other half of the tribes will stand on Mount Ebal to pronounce the devastating curses of disobedience, famine, terrifying disease, crushing defeat, and ultimately a tragic exile. This physical, geographical ceremony visually locked in the consequences. Obedience brings God's continued presence in life. Rebellion brings total devastation.
Bringing it all together, Moses delivers this profound emotional charge. He has walked with these people through decades of the highest highs and the lowest lows, and his heart is just pouring out right here. He earnestly begs them, choose life. He wants them to understand that this isn't just about ticking boxes on some legal checklist. Choosing life means actively loving God, listening to Him, and living in a devoted relationship with Him so that their future generations can genuinely thrive. But then, right after this beautiful plea, Moses delivers a bit of a gut punch. He looks at this new generation, people he has loved and led for decades, and he acknowledges a really grim reality. He explicitly tells them that after he dies, they are inevitably going to turn away from God, rebel, and face that terrifying curse of exile. Why? Because their hearts are fundamentally stubborn and hard. It's this sobering realization that despite having the perfect laws, human beings naturally lack the internal capacity to perfectly obey them. Yet, all is not lost. Even in the middle of predicting their total failure and subsequent exile, Moses offers a prophetic glimmer of hope. He says that when they're sitting in exile and finally cry out, God's going to do something completely unprecedented. He promises that God Himself will one day circumcise your heart. This vivid metaphor basically means God will fundamentally transform their stubborn, hard human nature from the inside out, finally giving them the miraculous ability to truly love Him with all their heart and soul. Section 2. A bittersweet farewell on Mount Nebo. We finally reach the emotional climax of our explainer, where a 120-year-old leader has to pass the torch. First, Moses writes down a prophetic warning song as a powerful witness for the future. He officially appoints Joshua and encourages him to lead the people forward. Then, in just a heartbreaking moment, Moses ascends Mount Nebo. God grants him the bittersweet honor of looking out over the sprawling promised land, the exact destination he's marched toward for 40 grueling years but can never actually enter. He dies there on the mountain, buried by God Himself, leaving a grieving nation that mourns him for 30 days. As Joshua takes command, the Book of Deuteronomy, and really the entire Torah, draws to a close, leaving us with this massive unresolved tension. Israel is standing there, right on the edge, about to cross the river into the promise. But they are stepping into this new land with the exact same unchanged, stubborn hearts that Moses just warned them about. It leaves us staring at a profound cliffhanger. How is the rest of this epic biblical narrative going to solve this fundamental human problem? How exactly will God deliver on that promise to miraculously transform the hearts of His people? Well, you'll just have to keep learning to find out.